everyone, welcome to Hot Cross Bun making today with me, Michelle from Boozy Bakers. Do feel free to say hi in the comments. It's nice to see who's joining in. I'll give you all a couple of minutes or a minute or so. I'll get a bit of water, get you all online. This is a little bit, I would say, of a technical challenge today. So if you're not baking along with me and you're watching, take notes and have a go later. They're a lot of fun. I think once you've done it once, they're not so difficult to repeat, and they're great fun to make with a family, and kids can get involved. It's a bit sticky, but it's all good. So yeah, let me know where you're from, and as usual, I want to know what the weather's like in your area because it's actually sunny today. Yeah, did a bit of planting out yesterday. Right. What have I got going on? I've got quite a few ingredients, but don't let that scare you. I've also, I've got the oven going and I've got the proving drawer so I can show you every process. That's my oven just going up to temperature. But I'm going to be able to show you every part of Hot Cross Buns because at some point, if you're baking along with me, you get to pop them to prove for an hour and then you can just enjoy. You can get a cup of tea and watch me do the rest. And I will show you what happens after they've proved. And I will explain proving if you haven't got a clue what I'm on about. Right then, so let's get going. First of all, I'm going to move this big bowl out of the way. I've got some milk. I've got 300 ml of milk. Now this is warm. It's not hot and it's not cold because I'm going to use this to activate my yeast. Now, if it's cold, it's going to be really slow to activate. And if it's too hot, it will kill the yeast. So think like baby's bath water or just a comfortable temperature. And I'm going to add my yeast and I'm going to add some sugar. Now in your recipe guide, I've said 75 grams of sugar. We're not going to use all of that right now, just a teaspoon of it. Just a teaspoon into your milk. There we go. And if you're questioning why just a teaspoon, it's going to help to activate that yeast, just like give it a kick start so that we can get on. This is like, I basically take out as much fat as I can about bread. Hi, Debbie. And I try to do one lot of proving and just take out as much of the process as possible, make it really enjoyable. So I've got 300 ml of milk. I've put in a teaspoon of the sugar and I'm going to add 7 grams of yeast, which is just a little bit more than a teaspoon. Or if you've got a sachet, you know they come in sachets, just use that. And I'm going to stir that in just to get it mixed up. But it will look a bit like, you know when you get a bowl of Weetabix, like the leftovers? It will look like that, like little bits of Weetabix almost floating on the top. So don't think it's all going to dissolve. So I don't know if you can see because it's a bit of an opaque mug, but you can see it all floating on the top here. But that is 300 ml of warm milk with a teaspoon of sugar and then our yeast, 7 to 10 grams of yeast that I've just added to the top, or added in and then mixed it, but it's floated to the top. And I'm just going to leave that now on the side. Now that will start to react. It might not be a big reaction, but you should find that it bubbles a little bit. So let's just leave it there whilst we do a bit of the rest of our process. Good morning, Claire from Devon. Is it sunny where you are, Claire? So there we go. Big bowl so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to add 500 grams of bread flour. Or you might find it's called strong flour. There we go. So strong flour. And to that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. The amount of teaspoons I get through, I've already done this today to make you here's some I made earlier. Hello, Tracy. Hello, Irene. Nice to have you. Oh, Guile, we're watching on catch up. No problem. I haven't said either, have I? This is going to make 12. So you'll have plenty to share. So that was a teaspoon of salt going into 500 grams of bread flour. And then I've got the remainder of the sugar, which is all but a teaspoon, 75 grams minus a teaspoon going into that. If you do have any questions as we go along, please feel free to type them in. I'm happy to answer them. I had someone contact me in the week to ask about sugar content and whether they could reduce it. Because it makes 12, you've got about 6 grams of sugar per hot cross bun. You can reduce it a bit, but the sugar will add moistness to your mix as well as sweetness. So they might go a little drier a bit quicker. But if you want to reduce the sugar, you can. So that was 75 grams of it into the flour, along with a teaspoon of salt. And now I'm going to add, so I don't need teaspoons galore, 2 teaspoons of mixed spice. If you don't have mixed spice, you can add, because I go quite heat, because I do like them a bit spiced. You could add your own mix, you know, cinnamon, nutmeg, a bit of ginger if you want, whatever you like. And all I'm going to do, actually I've got to ask my trusty assistant who's in the wings if I could have a wooden spoon, because I knew I'd forget something. I forgot the wooden spoon. So it's in the container behind you, Evie. Can you see the cow container on that's it. Brilliant. When I say cow container, it has a picture of a cow on it. Thank you very much. Right. So with my wooden spoon, I'm just going to mix all those powders up. There we go. There's a bit of a lump of sugar there, so I'll just get that off. So, oh, I like that smell. There's something that's just seasonal about it, isn't there? Okay. Now, I'm going to add 50 grams of melted butter. Oh, Lisa's got a question. Can I ask? I'm making these in a bread maker. The bread maker recipe contains milk powder. Is that essential, or can I leave it out? Well, milk powder, is it asking for milk as well, Lisa? I mean, you can make this recipe as it says, as a loaf of bread. There's no problem. It's just an enriched dough. So if you want to follow our recipe completely, you're fine. But I don't think, if you're doing this recipe and you're trying to add milk powder, no, I don't think you do need it. So I've got 50 grams of melted butter that I'm adding in. No milk. Okay, sorry, I'm back to Lisa for a second. Lisa, if your recipe has no milk in the bread, this is quite a wet mix. So if it's got liquid in your recipe, then the milk powder is going to make it more enriched. But without knowing the whole recipe, I wouldn't be able to advise for your bread maker. Yeah, if you want to contact me afterwards, if you're working to a different recipe, I'm happy to help. Otherwise, I'd stick with this recipe and not worry about the milk powder. Hope that helps. So I've got 50 grams of melted butter, and I'm going to add an egg. I'm just going to add it to the bowl first because I just want to give it a little bit of a whisk and combine that. Let's just get as much egg in as possible. If you're doing this and you're not very good at breaking eggs, it's also a really good idea to break it into a cup or a bowl, just so you don't have to fish out the shell from your recipe, all your ingredients. So just give that a little whisk. There we go. And then that's going to go in like so. And then I'm going to just give that a stir. Now, this isn't going to make a dough yet. It's, if anything, you'll end up with vague breadcrumby kind of. It will enrich the dough when everything else is added. At the moment, it'll get a bit lost in the flour. I'll show you, but you might find it looks like very floury breadcrumbs, if that makes sense. So without pouring it all on the computer, you should be able to see that it's kind of gone clumpy in places, but it's not it's not gone like an apple crumble mix or anything. I love the smell of hot cross buns, but not dried fruit, says Vicky. It's not for everyone. If you don't like the mixed fruit, add something else. Use chocolate. Use fudge pieces. No problem to make these your own. Right. So I've added the 50 grams of melted butter and the egg into that flour mix. And now I'm going to add my milk mix with the yeast. So I'm going to pour it on the screen if I'm not careful, but it's gone bubbly on top. It's a really good test, by the way, if you've got old yeast that you've never used in the back of your cupboard, to get a little bit of warm water and sugar and just tip a little bit in and see if it reacts before you go and use it in expensive ingredients. Right. So I'm just going to tip all that milk in along with the yeast. There we go. And I'm going to give that a little bit of a mix up, but we still need to add our mixed fruit. So I've just given it a little mix, but I'm now going to add my mixed fruit. Sorry, I'm headless. 130 grams of mixed fruit. As I said, if you'd rather just do sultanas or you'd rather do chocolate, you can, whatever you like. And then to that, I'm going to add the zest of an orange. So I'd use a zester or the smallest one on your grater. The smallest holes. And you don't want the white in it, you just want the orange. So just work your way around. Again, you don't have to add this if you thought, oh, I haven't got an orange to hand, I thought I did. Don't worry. I actually added a lemon zest to the ones I made earlier because I only bought one orange for today. And I'm also going to add some apple in a minute. Again, you don't have to, but you can. It's all these ingredients are optional. I'm actually quite partial to chocolate orange hot cross buns. I think they're rather nice. And I like fudge hot cross buns. The only problem is when you toast them, it gets messy. But there we go. Right, about there. Smells lovely. So if you don't like the smell of the mixed fruit, Vicky, you might like the smell of the orange. It's beautiful. There we go. So at least you can eat the orange after that. Not going to need it for anything else. Right, let's just get the zest out as much as possible. Now, the apple, I just need to quickly chop this up and peel it first. So I've only got a small eating apple, I haven't got anything big. Just adds a little bit more moisture, as well as taste to your hot cross buns. You can add more apple than this, but this is what got delivered. Tiny ones. So I'm just going to give these a bit of a cut up. And I'm just going to do small pieces. I don't want huge chunks. I mean, if you want chunks of apple in it, go for it. But I'm going to dice these quite small so that they don't take over in the dough. I just want little bits. So kind of bigger than matchsticks, but small. So I've gone one way, and then I'm just going to go the other, and do half of it at a time. There we go. There's not bad start to the Easter holidays, is it? If anyone's got the kids in the Easter holidays, it's rather sunny out there. We even went down to the beach yesterday and enjoyed a bit of sun. Oh, we got Vicky, like apple would be lovely. Yes, I think apple is a really good thing to add. And actually, lots of people in America, they use applesauce in their cakes to add moisture. Quite a lot, not all the time, but I think they use it more than we do in the UK. Right, last bits. Let's cut these up in little bits. I didn't do this in advance of the workshop because apple browns, doesn't it? And I know if you want to keep it for later, you can put apple juice and a bit of water over, lemon juice over it and a bit of water. But that was quite fast. So let's get rid of the skin so I don't put that in. There we go. And we're going to add that apple. Now, I'm going to have to stand up and do this. So I'm going to just move this up, like so. You see my head just about? There we go. Right. So I'm now going to stir this together. Now, if you happen to have a mixer, then use it by all means. Get your dough hook into your mixer and use that. Now, I have got one. I used it earlier. But it's really noisy and you need to be able to hear me and I need to be able to talk to you. So I'm doing it by hand. Now, what I am going to do while we're kneading, because this takes a few minutes, is I'm going to put the hot cross buns I made earlier into the oven so that they are ready in 15. So I can show you how to finish them off. Bear with me. And it's quite a bit of a wet dough, this, so don't be frightened if it's a bit wetter. Right, can I have those ones, please, Evie? That tray there. Thank you very much. So you'll see these again, don't worry, but I've got more to show you. So we do the cross together. But those are just 6 of them, so I can show you how to glaze them later. And I'm just going to put those in the oven. There we go. But I will come back to that. I just want to make sure that they're in and cooked so I can show you how to treat them a bit later. Right. So this dough, it is a wetter dough. And what you don't want to do is to make it too dry. You can add a little bit more flour if you find that it is really wet. But if I show you, can you see? It's very sticky, but give it some time. I will work this on the worktop in a minute, but I just want to just beat it up a bit in the bowl, just to try and get it to start getting more elasticated and get the glutens working in the bread. And you know what? We then earn a hot cross bun. So really using my muscles in my arm for that. Right. When you're wanting to, I might have to kind of go lower for a minute so you can see what I'm doing on the side. So sorry if I've not got my head in shot for a second. I'm going to put some flour on the work surface. Just spread it out a bit. And then I'm going to tip this wet dough onto the flour. There we go. Getting there. That's about right. Ooh. Bring that bowl over. I will scrape this down. Now, what I tend to do is try and keep it on flour and try and keep my hand a bit floured. It won't work. Inevitably, I will end up with flour everywhere. So I'm only going to do this one-handed, so I've got another one spare when I need my hand to pick something up. But what you do is, I'll try to do this from the side, I'm going to pick the flour up and press it over itself. Turn it, pick the flour up, press it in on itself, like so. Can you see what I'm doing? So when it's getting a little bit easier to handle, which it is, you can see I've got a little bit of sticky dough on my hands, then I will go to 2 hands. But one I'm really using just to keep it in control. But I love this process. And I think mixers are wonderful because you can put dough in a mixer and go and do something else. And they're an absolute time saver. And if you don't have a bit of strength in your arms, you know, it is a really good way to keep being able to do things and let the machine do it for you. But I just find this kind of very therapeutic to just do my own kneading. Although I have had kneading related injuries before, and I got repetitive strain injury for doing it too much. But you can see it's kind of holding its own shape now. Now, if you do this in a mixer, I wouldn't recommend that you do it for more than 7 minutes. If you're doing it by hand, you can't really over knead. So Charlotte's saying, if I use a machine with a dough hook, how long to use it for? And would I have to knead it like you are now? No, Charlotte. So if you're using a dough hook, I would say no more than 7 minutes. You might even be able to do it for more like 5. And then you need it to be in a ball. So obviously I'm getting this to pick up flour from the work surface. You saw how much I had on the work surface, and now it's incorporated into that. So if you're going to keep it into the machine, you might need to just put a little bit more flour in until the machine forms the ball for you. And then no, you don't need to do this as well. You just need it to be in a ball. You will need to bring it onto the work surface just to cut it into the buns, the balls for the buns. But otherwise the machine does all the work. They're marvellous. Now that, you can see it's sticky. I can feel the stickiness, but it's not sticking to my hand. Does that make sense? So it is a sticky dough. The more I'm handling it, the more it sinks into my fingers. It does have a stickiness. It's definitely not dry. In fact, can you see it's starting in places? It's lifting. That's fine. That's not a problem at all. I'd rather that and have a nice moist hot cross bun than it being too dry. I'm going to just add a little bit just so I can place it down and it not stick too much to the work surface. But you can see that's a much thinner layer. Now, you can knead it for longer, by the way. If you want to do a bit more kneading, go for it. What I'm going to do is I want to cut this into 12 pieces. I am useless when it comes to getting things to scale. So I'm going to go half. I'm going to my ball, I'm going to cut my ball in half, like so. I'm going to cut those ones in half. Ta-da. So I've now got 4 segments. And then I'm just going to make them into more even sausages. It looks a bit like those little baguettes, the bread baguettes, those little tiny ones. So I've got that, and now I'm going to cut that into 3. And I think, from memory, if you want to be really technical about the size of them, they're about 95 grams. So that's 1 ball, 2 balls. I will make them a bit tidier before I put them onto a baking tray. I hope I'm not going too fast for you guys, but by all means, do come back to this tutorial and re-watch. So more of them. If you think, goodness, I don't need 12 hot cross buns, you can freeze hot cross buns. You could freeze the dough, you could freeze them made and or par cook them. The other thing you can do is make them all, and it's a really good excuse when you think I'm not going to get through them, to make a hot cross bun bread and butter pudding. And I have got a link for that. If you go to Boozy Bakers' YouTube channel, there is a hot cross bun bread and butter pudding that you can follow. And I put on a custard recipe as well. So if you head over to our channel, you will find those as well. Right. I'm a bit covered in dough, so I'm just going to wash my hands a little bit. Like so, although I think this is just making it worse. You know that feeling when you've got like flour and water and that kind of gluey feeling? It's never good. My son really hates kneading bread for this reason. But that's not too bad. Let's just get a dry cloth and work off the worst of it. Right, there. Now, I've got a baking tray that I've put some parchment paper on. It's not greased or anything. It's loose. It's just to stop them sticking. So, oh, thank you, Village Hall, for putting that on. Yeah, and I think actually I've got YouTube, but I've also our Facebook, our website, and there's all the recipes on there as well. Right, so each ball, I tend to go and make them into a circle and find the smoothest side, and make that your top. If you think, oh no, it's all looking a bit like that, pinch it together. Just pinch it together and create that smooth top. And then, let's bring it down a bit so you can see. You've got, I think you do 3 by 4. And you just want little spaces in between so that they grow. But I love it when hot cross buns actually, when they've grown a bit, then they touch and you have to tear them. And I love that soft bread that you get in between. So just give that, find the side that I'm happiest with, like there. Put that on. Smell the hot cross buns in the oven. It's lovely. I will come back to oven temperatures, I promise. I'm just having to go a little bit out of whack with my own kind of, here's some I made earlier, so they're nice and hot to be able to glaze them. So just add these to the tray. Getting there. You do realise, guys, I now have, because I've done the here's some I made earlier, I've now got 24 hot cross buns to eat. Do you poke the dried fruit in so it doesn't burn? And no, I don't. You're welcome to, but they're not going to bake for as long as you'd think. So it doesn't really burn, but you can if you wish. So there's another one. Last 3. There we go. Another one. There. Right, so once you've got them all on the tray, let's bring it up a bit and I'll bring these towards me now. So once you've got them all on the tray, these need to prove for about an hour. It does depend how cold or how warm your kitchen is, but I would say about an hour. Now you need to cover these, either I would say a damp tea towel, or I would use some cling film. But you don't want to really cover them tightly because you need to allow them to grow. So what I do, I should do 2 things. One, I make sure that I cover them loosely, but I use a bit of oil. It doesn't have to be this spray oil. This is just, again, a bit of my own laziness. But if I spray this cling film with oil, when it touches the hot cross buns, they don't stick. There's nothing worse when you've made bread and it's risen beautifully and it's touching the cling film, and then you realise that when you pull it, it's tearing the bread. Thank you. Right. So that's not tucked in, that's just loose. I know, I like that tip as well. So it's just loosely on top. I'm not going to tuck it around the tin or anything. I'm just going to leave those. And we're going to leave them to prove for about an hour. And they should grow so that they're either touching or almost touching. So I'm going to give those to Evie for a second. And if she doesn't mind, could you bring me out the here's some I made earlier? And we'll look at them when they've had about an hour proving. It's going all right, guys. We've got some in the oven, some proving, some that need improving. There we go. bear with us. Thank you very much. So these, I split my last mix into 6s, just so I didn't end up with 36 hot cross buns to eat. So can you see that they are touching now? They've grown and they're touching. So what we need to do for these is missing something. It's missing our cross. So we need to add that next. So to do that, I'm just going to get a bowl, and you want to put in like a bit of flour, just plain flour, or your bread flour is fine. So, you know, a couple of dessert spoons of that. Don't need loads, to be honest. And then you want some water. Now, do it bit by bit, but I think you need twice as much water as flour. But let's test that theory. 3, 4. We're going to make a paste. I know when we've held this before, some people have said, oh, we used to use marzipan to go on top. But I use bread dough. Yeah, that's about right. So I'm just mixing that up into a paste, like so. See that? And you want it to kind of not be too runny, because we're going to pipe it onto our hot cross buns. And we don't want it to run everywhere, but you need it to be soft enough that it's pipeable. So in true Blue Peter fashion, I've got some in a bag already from earlier. So I've got disposable piping bags. I have lots of these because I'm a baker by trade and I use them all the time. If you don't, all I've done is I've put some into the bag, and I've just chopped a hole in the top, just big enough that I get a thin strip of dough coming through. If you don't have one of these, not a problem. Just get like a sandwich bag, put your dough in, and then cut the corner so you've got the same kind of thing as this. Now, that's the hot cross buns coming out. Bear with me. Can we put them on there, Evie? Would you be happy to get them out for me? We're just going to put them on the side for a minute, and then we'll come straight to them. Right. So, with my piping, I'm going to come right in. I'm going to lower the camera so you can see. All I'm going to do is start on one side, try and do it so you can see, and I'm going to go to the edge. I'm going to do it slowly. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to come up. I'm going to follow it around and come up. I'm really sorry if this is slightly misshapen, but I'm doing it at a really odd angle. There we go, like so. And then I'm going to do it again here. I'm going to start at the edge, come up, and follow it, like so. There we go, like that. And then you want to go the other way, like so. Like that. Very good. Like so. There we go. So that is the crosses on it. And you can see it's a different colour because we've used the mixed spice in the buns themselves. So you do get that lightness because it's just a basic mix with nothing else added, no enrichments. So they can actually go in the oven. We might as well put them in. And they, let's just see so you can see me. You'll cook your hot cross buns when they're proved and you've got the line on them. You can cook them at, bear with me, malfunction. It's me multitasking, it doesn't work sometimes. You can cook them for 15 minutes at 220 degrees Celsius. 200 degrees for fan, and gas mark 7. Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, they weren't too bad, were they, at an angle? So I'll show you the ones I made earlier. Thank you very much, Evie, for getting those out for me. So these are my ones. Here's some I made earlier. So you can see those, they're nice and golden brown. It's actually, the oven's caught them ever so slightly, but they're just golden brown. They're not too dark at all. There we go. Can you see those? Now, you might think, they look a bit dull. That is because we're going to glaze them next. So I've got some honey. If you don't want to use honey, you can use like a syrupy jam. You might need to heat it a little bit. But you're going to, I haven't actually heated this honey, but it is quite runny. And these are very hot. So whilst they're hot, you just want to put the glaze on. And that kind of sinks in and sets. So it won't, I mean, they'll have a stickiness, but it won't be overly sticky. And you'll go, oh yeah, they look like hot cross buns now. Now, ways to tell that your hot cross buns are done. And they will actually, well, they look done, but they will sound hollow if you actually tap them on the back. I know, and they're really hot, so you have to be careful when you do that. But if you tap them, then they will sound hollow. So I'm just making sure I get to that side. I'm going to go along. Evie, do you like hot cross buns? Yes. Yes. So this first batch is going to go to Evie for being my star helper today. And there we go. But I do love baking. I love the smell of baking. And I just think things like Easter, it's such a great time to have a go. If you've got kids or grandkids, I think the only thing you've got, you can't see me properly, the only thing you've got is that you have a stickier mix. But I think if either let the kids get sticky and messy and wash their hands up, or bring it to a point that it's a little bit more doughy. But it's such a nice activity to do as a family as well. And I just think there's a sense of accomplishment making your own hot cross buns. It's the one thing you do this Easter. Have a go. Make sure as well to put your pictures onto the Virtual Village Hall website. It's great to see how they look. So if you do have a go at this, please do show us your creations. And if you make any variations to them, maybe you do put some chocolate in or different, just show us. There we go. Can you see those? Try not to burn my fingers. There we go. Ow. They are quite hot. Tell you what, let's do a bit of a mixture. Let's do that. And I'll tip them a little. There we go, guys. That is hot. Oh, dear me. There we go. I'll tell you what, let's pick one up. There. Hot cross bun. They are steaming hot, so I don't advise you eat them until they're cooled down. I would also say put them on a rack. So if you have one, once you've got them out of the oven, do put them on a rack just so that they don't sweat, because they're so warm. You want them to kind of cool down underneath. You don't want them to kind of go soggy, like it's a bit of a Mary Berry, isn't it? You don't want them to have soggy bottoms. You want them to have nice all the way around. But yeah, that's your hot cross buns. As I said, if you want, I obviously enjoy the hot cross buns as they are. But if you do find that you've got leftovers, then do head over to our website or our YouTube channel. We've got recipes on there, and you can make yourself a hot cross bun, bread and butter pudding and some custard to go with them. But have fun making them and do share your photos. But that's it from me. Have a lovely Easter, everyone. See you later. Bye. Well, I did say 5, but we're not off, but